Gene Robinson, we obviously, you look at how Philadelphia does it, and we certainly, I think it would be a terrible mistake to do a perfect layover as far as quotas going. Well, you have this many whites, this many black, but Philadelphia does it. It sounds like they do it pretty darn well. My question is, how did Ferguson, and I'm sure, hopefully there are a lot of other towns out there that if they have the same disparities, they are correcting them now, but you just wonder how Ferguson became so misrepresented, underrepresented in the community that's not a minority in Ferguson, but the community that is a majority in Ferguson.
Well, it seems like a town that time forgot in that sense, because political power shifted in so many other majority black jurisdictions. Didn't shift in Ferguson for whatever reason, and you know, Ferguson is this is going to last. This is going to be with us for a long time, and in the end, it's going to be a healthy thing. And I disagree with you about the hands up gesture, by the way.
Oh, but by the way, I was just going to tell you, I was reading my Twitter feed, and I was just about to ask you, because people were saying, Gene Robinson, respond to Joe, respond to Joe. So that was going to be my next question. Gene, the tweeters are screaming for you to respond to my hands up gesture statement. And so now is the time to do it.
Well, no, it's the hands-up gesture. This gesture has become, has come to represent the fact that you acknowledge and you've talked about it for a long time now, which is that there are two justice systems. There's one for young black men, and there's one for everybody else. You know, I think the Rams players were perfectly within their rights, their First Amendment rights to do it. I think the team and Coach Fisher in particular was right to say they're not going to be punished, and you know, the grand jury, while it seemed to act as the finder of fact in this case, and in fact that's not the total role. That's the role of the trial jury, and there were witnesses who said that at some point he had his hands up. So you know, and again, does the physical evidence show that at the moment that the bullets tore into his body he had his hands up? Probably not. Does it say that at some point his hands might have been up or were going up or were coming down? It certainly doesn't rule that out. And there are a bunch of witnesses who said that did happen.
I don't want to get into. I mean,
yeah, I know. I mean,
but the thing is, Gene,
pages of
you look at the transcripts, though, and I just do want to be clear about this: that everybody that said that he had his hands up seemed to recant their testimony. The person that said he had his hands up and then he got shot, and the police later, ended up not even being at the scene. I guess my only point is, we do agree on two justice systems, white Americans versus black Americans. We talked about this extensively after Trayvon Martin, where we were on the same side there about how young black males are treated differently. I agree with you on the substance of, I think, almost everything here, and we have for many years now. I guess my biggest concern is that when Rams players hold their arms up, that is so weighted with what's happened here that it does make a direct suggestion, an inflammatory suggestion, that this white police officer shot a black young man who had his arms up in the air saying, "Don't shoot." I don't mind symbolism. I understand the black power thing at the '68 Olympics. That was symbolic, and it suggested something. This, though, is not symbolic. This is very specific to what's happening in Ferguson, right?
Well, this is specific, and it is very symbolic. And and just in the last couple of weeks, we had the young man who was tragically shot in Brooklyn. We had the young man who was the boy who was tragically shot in Cleveland. My column today is about the number. It's actually less about race than the number of police shootings. In fact, we need to get a handle on how much this happens. But this is about a lot of issues, and this actually is how we get through these issues. This is how we make progress on race here in this country. It's very scratchy.
See, I would disagree.
It's very confrontational, but this is the way we actually get to the next step.
But see, Gene, I don't think that's the case here, and that's what causes me the biggest concern. Like, Trayvon was cut and dry to me. It wasn't cut and dry to a lot of my Republican friends. It wasn't cut and dry to conservatives who were still attacking me for what I said during Trayvon. What concerns me here is that facts are twisted and they're taken out of place, and it hardens the hearts of people who might be in the middle, who might live in a white community, and might be more willing to start saying the things that I'm saying, and that more Republicans need to say, because they look at people saying, you know, so many lies were spread early on, and spread on Twitter, and spread on Facebook, and it became sort of urban legend. And then we find out later that so much that was said early on that caused the outrage and caused the protests ended up not being true. That's my concern here. So if you use a gesture that's based on a lie, I'm just afraid that doesn't help the conversation. In fact, it coarsens the debate.
Well, the gesture stems from what some witnesses said. And again, if you look at the testimony and you look at the way those witnesses were taken through their testimony as opposed to the way some other witnesses were taken through their testimony, one wonders if, well, I don't actually wonder, but I think that if in a proper adversarial trial situation, I'm not sure we would have.
Gene, do you have any evidence? Let's cut through it. Let's not talk about the niceties of the legal debate. Do you believe that Michael Brown had his arms up, saying don't shoot? Do you believe that actually happened?
Oh, look, I actually believe that at some point he was clearly advancing toward the officer at the time he was shot. Was he charging the officer like a bull, like a demon, as the officer said? Was he staggering toward him?
Do you believe he had his arms up in the air and said, "Don't shoot"? I think this is a very important question to answer. If this is going to become the new symbol, the new protest symbol of people on the floor of the House and before football games, I think it actually matters whether it's the truth or not.
But I don't believe, Joe, there's anything in the record and certainly not in the forensic evidence, that precludes the possibility that he had his hands up at some point when he was approaching the officer. He probably
That's an
did
awfully
not.
low standard. There's also nothing in the evidence that doesn't suggest a flying saucer from Venus swooped over all of them. I mean, that's a very low standard.
Well, there's lots of evidence that there was no flying saucer, but no one would be claiming
there's no
had
evidence that it's precluded, though, Chief.
Okay, so this is
I'm not being difficult here. I'm just saying the truth actually does matter.
I think it's a very uncomfortable question for you, Gene, because I think it's an uncomfortable question for you, because if you say no, there was no evidence his hands were up, you're probably insulting a lot of people. Do you feel uncomfortable with the question?
No, I don't feel uncomfortable with the question at all.
Do you think his hands were up from everything you've read?
Because I don't think there is any evidence that his hands were never up. There's no evidence that his hands were never up, and there are people who say that they were. Now, those people may not be talking about the instant when he was shot, because the physical evidence seems to rule that out.
Gene, I'm only smiling because I was just saying this has reached at this point, I think, the end, and I just had Dan in my ear going, "Okay, Joe, I think that's enough." But I think we have played this one out. But I'm sorry.
The protest symbol of the hands being up,
right,
and the Rams and these 5 players being able to do that and have that moment might be more symbolic of the larger conversation of excessive deadly force in an underserved judicial system. So take the Michael Brown case. Maybe that was the example that they were trying to use, but as we look at this on a nationwide scale, what else could they have done?
It's a real problem. There's no,
they were trying to prove a point about excessive deadly force and an underserved judicial system.
I talked about the '68 Olympics in Mexico City and the famous Black Power. I mean, I would rather them do that than this, because this is more. I mean, there needs to be something to be said, and I do think, Gene, again, for people that only look at clips and haven't heard our conversations over the past 2 or 3 or 4 years. They might not understand that we are on the same side on almost all of these issues, and I think this conversation needs to be had. My concern is just with the symbolic gesture, so I guess that is a good question.
Okay, that's it.
I want the conversation to be had. It needs to be had.
All right.
And it's been had.
It's really interesting.
Well, and the apology, non-apology between the Rams and the
Oh, my Lord.
Let me get one more story in here. Republicans.
We got to get Jeremy in here, Dr. Jeremy Peters.
Still...
Oh, he's gone. Jeremy, that was your best.
Thank you, Jeremy Peters.
Did he say anything?
No.
Not the entire time?
He said one thing.
It was really good,
in the 2 hours that he was here.
Was really good, though, wasn't it?
No.
What did he say?
I don't remember. Do you?
Oh, he was talking about John Boehner. I think it changed the way Washington is going to look at the speaker.
We're sorry, Jeremy.
Sorry, Jeremy.
All right, Republicans.
Gene was just like,
I'm serious. Gene,
I'm sorry.
I love you, but you are one big run-on sentence.
I'm sorry. It's my fault. Don't shoot. My bad.
Yeah,
seriously.
Just don't shoot me, Joe.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
don't shoot me. Don't shoot me.
I'm only the piano player. Like, can we get a split of this here?
Okay,
1, 2, 3.
no,
1, 2, 3.
no.
I'm just a piano player. Okay, let's go into politics.
Republicans have improved their standing with voters, according to a CNN